really said or the set of the. Hey everyone, I'm Anna, and this is the R5 Leather Workshop, where today we are celebrating the 1-year anniversary of me on YouTube. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through your questions that you've posted below my videos and answer some of them. I'm going to be answering mostly leathercraft related ones, so that you can out there know the answers to questions that maybe you were thinking but didn't feel like commenting below on. So with that, let's get started. So this goes all the way back to one of my first videos where I made a coaster. I also in that video recapped and talked briefly about the different types of leather, all the way from full grain leather down to things like bonded leather, which are really low quality. And in that video, I showed my grandmother's Bible that was made or has a bonded leather cover, and it looks terrible. And someone asked me, would you ever consider recovering that Bible for a video? I do actually plan on doing a video on how to recover books with leather, but not that specific Bible, because it was my grandmother's and it has sentimental value. I probably would never change the cover on that particular Bible. There's stuff written on the insides and stuff like that, so I probably would never redo that Bible, but I do have plans for this year to do a video where I do recover books and talk about how you can bind your books with, or cover your books with leather. So this is from my first video about resources for patterns. And in this video, someone said, what about Etsy? Some of them can be expensive. The other thing I'll say about Etsy patterns is there are some good patterns there. I think you need to find the patterns you find on Etsy. I would highly recommend, if you watch a video and someone makes a bag and they show a pattern and they link it on Etsy, it's probably fine. The other weird thing I find about Etsy, this has happened to me, where someone recommends a pattern and I go look at it and I pull it up on Etsy, and then underneath it are recommendations, and they're not from the same seller. So for example, someone I've looked up, and I think it's referenced in my second pattern video, is Springbok leather, or I think it's called Springbok Craft Co. She does leather patterns as well, which I think I mentioned it in my second pattern video. And I went and looked up her catalog, and I saw some neat patterns, and I was like, that's weird. This doesn't seem like her style. And it turned out they were other ones, and they were like patterns from places that I didn't want. So also make sure that you're within the creator that you're looking for, or the crafter you're looking for when you're on Etsy. So this next question was in regards to the crossbody strap video, and it was, do you bevel and burnish them after you dye them? So in all honesty, most of the time I do not bevel my crossbody straps. I always use a chrome tan from Horween, and it's malleable enough and it doesn't tend to get those sharp edges, so I in general don't actually bevel those. But if I was to bevel them, I would bevel them, then I would dye everything with the dye if it needed to be dyed, because if it's not struck through, I would probably dye it. And then I would burnish after that. I would always burnish after I put any dye down, because the moisture in the dye, as well as from the toconol, is going to help you burnish it. So, and you would always need to use something like toconol, by the way, when you burnish with a chrome tan. Chrome tans will not burnish with water. You have to use toconol, or something like toconol, something that has a binder in it like toconol does. All right, this next question is in regards to skiving, and they asked, is there an easier way to skive the back of fleshy chrome tans? Now, this is something I probably didn't cover really perfectly clearly in the video. I know I talked that they can be different, and different leathers skive differently. I find in general a veg tan is much easier to skive than say a chrome tan, just in general, regardless. But in regards to the fleshy back, let me get a piece of fleshy back chrome tan and you can see what they're talking about. So this is a piece of chrome tan from Horween, and the back on this is really fuzzy. It's not as, the the fleshy part isn't as tight, and so it tends to be kind of loose. These can be really difficult to skive, especially if you're using something. If you're using a standard like French, or not a French skiver, a Japanese skiver like this is, they're very difficult. It's frustrating. There's something, I don't know, it's just something about the tanning process, and then the fleshiness and that kind of loose flesh on the backside is difficult. What I would say is if you're gonna do those, skiver like this, that's like a razor in the backside that you can scoop across, is going to be easier. Or a skiver that looks like this. These are going to be the ones that are a little bit easier with this because they have the razor in there. But my big complaint about both of these styles, now these are a little different. This one you kind of go like this, like you would like a shaving razor. They're kind of that same motion. And this one is kind of like this pulling motion this way. These, and this is why I don't like these a whole lot, I feel like most of the time it's really easy to not have even slicing, and a Japanese scyther does a much better job, as does a French scyther, of staying consistent in your thickness. But I do find that these work better when you have a really fleshy back chrome tan. So you just have to learn how to use these. I don't like these. I own them, but I use them really, really rarely. So that's kind of the answer to that question. Okay, so this next one comes from my second pattern video, and it was, what is the pattern in the thumbnail? So the pattern in the thumbnail is actually one of my own designs. It's a bag that I made that I haven't ever developed into a pattern. It is something though that I am working on, although it's turning out to be a lot harder process than I thought, to start converting all of my paper patterns into a PDF format that you can easily print at home. Although I've started converting some of my patterns to vector software where I can print them, I then have to take it from this kind of big format and figure out how to divvy it out into more of like a puzzle piece where you can like tape them together and use the pattern, especially when we're talking about bags, which is a lot of what I make and a lot of what I'm hoping to start providing for you guys. So I'm working on that. My original plan was to have it out now, but it's just proven to be a lot harder than I thought to learn a whole new software that I've never used before and then convert it. And then once I figure out how to even print it properly, I have to learn how to properly put it on my website and make sure that they download properly to you guys when you purchase them as well. So it is something I'm working on. And so hopefully that pattern on the front of that thumbnail will eventually be available for you to purchase. This next one comes from the second scrap video that I did just recently leading up to the holidays, and it was regarding the sunglasses case that I made. And someone asked, have you noticed that when you slide your glasses in, does the leather scratch your glasses? Because I always say you should have microfiber cloth. No, I haven't seen any problems with my sunglasses. To be fair, I don't own any super expensive sunglasses. I am notorious for breaking them and not taking proper care of expensive sunglasses. So my sunglasses are like $20 sunglasses, but I haven't noticed any problems with my sunglasses in my sunglasses case. They sit in my car in the case and I take them in and out all the time and I haven't had any problems. So that shouldn't really be a problem. I don't know why it would scratch. The leather is soft. It's a natural fiber. So I haven't had a problem with that. If for some reason you have, let me know. I'd love to know why you think that is, but I haven't noticed anything personally with that. All right, this next one is not really a question, but it's something I wanted to address. Someone said they don't like the hand press machines for rivets. They say they're more trouble than they're worth. And I think with rivets, they're not. I think in those machines, if you have the proper size press pieces in, the rivets, it's really hard to mess up your rivets that way. There are certain times when your project isn't going to fit into the machine properly. But for me, those times when I do still have to hammer a rivet in are so few and far between for me personally in my own projects that I will take the hand press any day over having to hammer them. I have shoulder issues. If I can avoid hammering, I'm going to avoid hammering. So in that respect, I actually think it's a good thing. There are times when where you have to put things and how you have to hammer it in. Yeah, you're not going to be able to use the hand press. But for me, 90% of the time, the hand press is a better one. If you're used to hammering them in and you don't have shoulder problems, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it is easy to properly press a rivet with a hammer and the tools you're given. I just really like the hand press. It takes less wear and tear off my shoulder. So that's my thing with that. They also said the same thing with snaps. And with snaps, I don't have a snap mechanism. I use snaps, honestly, so rarely that I don't mind hammering them in. More and more, I'm moving to these magnetic snaps for most of my products. I think the only thing I use more of a standard snap on anymore is my cord keepers that I make, that I sell as one of my products. And I did do a video about that in the scrap video. So it's kind of up to you. I think you have to know what works for you. I really enjoy not having to put as much pressure into my arm to hammer it. So that's more of a personal opinion thing than anything, but I thought I would address it and why I personally do prefer having the hand press, especially for rivets. I set a lot of rivets, and especially bags when it's really easy to set it in there and just press it down. I think it's great. Probably one of the best purchases I made for my own personal workshop. And kind of in the same vein of that, in the same video, someone asked, what do you think of Amazon snaps? I like when I first started, I did buy all my snaps through Amazon. They were much cheaper, and they come with the setting tools that you need to do it. But something I discovered as I went, I remember I kind of was almost done with my first box, and I went and bought another one. I hadn't had any problems. They were snapping properly, so I didn't have any problems with the Amazon ones, honestly. But I had a few random leftover pieces, because sometimes you'll set half of the snap and it goes wrong, and so you've lost that half, but you still have the other half of the snap. And so I had kept all these little extra pieces thinking, oh, I may be able to mix and match them with the new batch when they come in. So then I used up the second bin worth. And then I discovered, and I think this is when I was doing a big batch of cord keepers, that between the lots, they're not always going to work with each other. So within your box, they should snap properly. But if you're using one side from one box and the other side from another box, and you snap them together, they may not snap properly. And that is kind of the downside of the cheaper Amazon snaps, is that wherever factory in, they have different quality control. And as a result, from lot to lot, they're not going to match up. Or they might match up, but you can't guarantee it. Whereas if you do buy your snaps from, say, Tandy Leather or Weaver Leather Supply or Buckle Guy or Sailrite, they're going to cost more, but they're going to have tighter quality controls, hopefully, on their snaps. And then you can buy between lots and, mix and match them, and you shouldn't have a problem. So that's just the lesson I learned the hard way. You can still buy the Amazon snaps if you really feel like it. Just know you're probably not going to be, if you have some leftover pieces that make you left, you're probably just going to have to chuck them. So just something to be aware of with that. So with that, those are all the questions that I've had so far through as of this recording. There is actually another video that is, at the time of this recording, I don't have any comments on a couple of videos that have already come out. But if they were to come on later, they'll just have to be in another video. So anyway, I wanted to thank everyone who has subscribed to this channel and has made it grow so much, way beyond my own expectations for 1 year. I kind of said that already in the thank you video that I did, but I just want to say I love everyone who's made comments. So I've had a lot of comments and thank you so much for the channel. Thank you for the service, what you're providing. And I'm hoping to get better. I'm hoping to get better at how I explain things. I'm hoping to just get better and provide you with new product or new projects that you can do. A couple of things coming this next year is I do really want to get patterns out so that you can purchase them. Probably the first, for sure the first one that'll come out will be a free pattern for you. And I'm hoping to do free patterns from time to time. More complex patterns, I will probably charge a small fee. That's just kind of the way it goes. But for the most part, I'm really looking forward to that project. I have some other fun projects that I'm really looking forward to doing with you all, and so I can't wait to see what another year brings. Anyway, hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.